Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. The harvest is past, but are you saved? The harvest is past, but are you saved? That's the question for us this morning. We know that there are three harvests. There is the barley harvest, and there is the wheat harvest, and then in the fall, there is the fruit harvest. And so, according to Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verse 16, the male in Israel, they were to go out in the season to worship Yah and bring him an offering. And so that's the subject we would like to look at on this, the Feast of Tabernacle. The Feast of Tabernacle. We read in the book of Luke that the Messiah was born in the Feast of Tabernacle. The word says that he tabernacled with us. And so this morning, he takes this agricultural situation and presents it to the prophet Jeremiah to speak to his people. And so the prophet Jeremiah was commissioned to announce Yah's inexorable judgment upon his disloyal and perfidious people. They had forgotten that the kingdom was established on the principle of righteousness and was governed by the immutable laws of Yah. Unlike human creeds, which they obeyed by way of their impulses, the laws of Yah are not so. They are obligatory. They must be kept. But Israel had forgotten. And so Yahweh raised up Jeremiah, called him the weeping prophet, because Jeremiah was a man of passion. And if ever you preach without passion, you're not preaching like Jeremiah at all. And the times in which we live demands preachers of passion. And so this morning we want to look at the book of Jeremiah, who was asked to go to the southern kingdom, that's Judah, before it came under siege to Babylon, and the people were taken into captivity. Never have you seen a more nonchalant group of people, a smug kind of people, the sure feet of their hubris that overleaps itself, born perhaps out of doubt, impudence, presumptions, informed by what seemed to be an implacable pride caused by the arrogance of wealth. And so we can only compare what was happening then in the 7th century BC with what is happening now in the 21st century in our time of Laodicea. Israel had drifted into ritualism. The people would go to the temple, they would go to the synagogue, and they would go through the forms each week, just like today. People would go to church, and they do go to church. And they go through the communion service. They go through Passover. They go through the rituals. And they do all the things that on the external seem right. But Yah wanted them to have an internal experience. So he sent Jeremiah to them to let them know that the external rituals to which they have become so accustomed to was pointing to something much more profound. They must have that internal experience. So Jeremiah was warning the people because they had this refrain. They kept saying, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. Just like today, you hear people say, well, we are the remnant, and we are such and such a church. And this church, they say, will never go down because it's the Lord's church. And Yah says they speak lies. And so we want to look at that this morning. And as we look at the book of Jeremiah, we will see the poetry in there. And as you read the scriptures, and whenever you come up against poetry, you know that's what Yah is feeling. He tells you what he's feeling because he's speaking from the heart. And if you ever come up against prose, you know that's what Yah is thinking. So when you read the scripture, you make the distinction between prose and poetry. In prose, he is telling you what he is thinking, and in the poetry, he is telling you what he is feeling. And this morning, we want to look at what Yah is feeling through the prophet Jeremiah. So come with me to Jeremiah chapter 1. Yeriyahu, that's his Hebrew name. And the word says, the words of Yemiyahu, the son of Eliyahu, of the priest who were in Anathoth in the land of Benjamin. He's a Benjamite. To whom the word of Yahweh came in the days of Yeshuyahu, son of Amon, sovereign of Yehuda, in the 13th year of the reign. And it came in the days of Yehoiahim, son of Yehoshiyahu, son of Yehuda, until the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Yeshuyahu, sovereign Yehuda, until the exile of Yeshualahim in the 5th new moon. Now the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, before I formed you in the belly, before I knew you, and before you came out of the womb, I did set you apart. I appoint you a prophet to nations. Jeremiah, while you were in the womb, I set you apart. I knew you, Jeremiah, from the womb. You were appointed. Jeremiah is a contemporary of Josiah. They were born in the same year. And Josiah, as you know, took the throne at 8 years old. And Jeremiah began to preach roundabout when he was about 20 years old. And he was sent to preach to Judah because by that time, in 722 BC, Israel had already been taken by the Assyrians and Judah was left. And so Jeremiah was sent. But I want to look at that aspect of the agricultural season. Many things can go wrong with a farmer's field or his harvest. It may be that he didn't have any rain or too much rain, not enough sun, too much sun. And so there are so many things that can go wrong with the harvest. And perhaps if the grain harvest, as in this case, had failed, they could hold out hope that perhaps the fruit harvest would be better. But in the context of our study this morning, both the grain harvest and the fruit harvest failed. And in conclusion, all they could say is in Jeremiah 8 and verse 20, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. It's a lamentation. It's a sad state of affair. The grain harvest failed and the fruit harvest failed. And Yah is using Jeremiah to take this agricultural situation and to explain the moral and the spiritual and the political situation of Judah. The harvest is past. The summer is ended. And we are not saved. And so that question comes to us this morning. We have just gone through that process. And attitudinally, we must ask ourselves, are we saved? And the question, if it's that serious to us who keep the feast days, considering then how much more serious it is for those who did not keep it. The harvest is past. The summer has ended, and we are not saved. So come with me to chapter 7 of Jeremiah. The word that came to Yirmiyahu, that's Jeremiah, from Yahweh, saying, stand in the gate of the house of Yahweh, and you shall proclaim there this word, and shall say, hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Yehudah who enter in these gates to bow before Yahweh. Jeremiah, go down to the gate, at that gate at the temple, and speak to the people. Don't be afraid of them, Jeremiah. Go there and speak in their faces. Go there. Jeremiah in chapter 1 is crying out, saying, I'm a youth. I can't do this. And Yah said, don't say that you're a youth. Who puts word in man's mouth? Go down there, Jeremiah, and you go to the gate of the temple and speak. And one can assume to speak to all the people must have been one of the feast days. And perhaps it was a tabernacle. Speak to the people. Stand in the gate of the house of Yahweh, and you shall proclaim there this word, and shall say, hear the word of Yahweh, all you Yehudah who enter in these gates to bow before Yahweh. Genuflect yourself. Surrender yourself to Yahweh. Tell them, thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael, make your ways and your deeds good, then I let you dwell in this place. Do not trust in these false words, saying, this is echo, this is the temple. The echo, this is the temple. Don't trust in that at all. These are mere words. And this was the refrain the people had. This is the house of Yah. And Yah say they speak loud. For if you Truly make your ways and your deeds good. If you truly do right rulings between a man and his neighbor, if you do not oppress the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and do not shed innocent blood in this place, or walk after other mighty ones to your own evil, then shall I let you dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. See, you are trusted in false words, which do not profit. What were they doing? It tells you in verse 9. Stealing? Oh, yes. How were they stealing? This was the same place. They had made a den of thieves. They were selling and exchanging in the temple. And they were murdering and committing adultery and swearing falsely and burning incense to Baal and walking after other mighty ones that they have not known. This was what they were doing. And Jeremiah was sent to them to let them know they need to change what was going on. Otherwise, he's going to tear down the church, the temple. And so he's letting them know, because like today, people say, as I indicated before, this is the church. It will not go down. And they speak presumptuously, arrogantly, rudely. So verse 12 is for them. But go now to my place at Shiloh, where I set my name at the first. For about 400 years, the tabernacle was in Shiloh. And we know the story of Eli and his sons. He says, go there now, where my name was, and see what I did because of the evil of my people, Yisrael. He said, I left. And when I left, Ichabod, the glory had departed. And I'm going to do to Jerusalem the same that I did to Shiloh. And the same that I did to Jerusalem, if the people in Laodicea do not change their attitude, I'm going to do the same to them again. Remember, that's what the word is saying, and that's what we need to understand, that what happened in Shiloh happened in Jerusalem, and what happened in Jerusalem is going to happen to the end time assembly. But what did the people say? In chapter 8 and verse 6, what did they say? They said, I have listened and heard. They do not speak right. No man has repented of his evil, saying, what have we done? They're asking, well, what have we done? We just read in chapter 7 that they were murdering, they were committing adultery, they were having false mighty ones or gods. And here they are as if to say they're innocent. Well, what have we done? They're asking that question. Verse 8, how do you say we are wise and the Torah of Yahweh is with us? But look, the false pen of the scribes have worked falsehood. They're writing falsehood. They're preaching falsehood. And so Jeremiah was sent to them to warn them. Verse 12 of chapter 8, were they ashamed when they had done abomination? No. No, they were not at all ashamed, nor did they know how to blush. So they shall fall among those who fall. They shall stumble in the time of their visitation, said Yahweh. And so, verse 14, why are we sitting still? Gather yourselves and let us go into the walled cities and let us be silent there. For Yahweh our Elohim has let us perish and given us What? Poisoned water to drink because we have sinned against Yahweh. The harvest is past. Remember, these harvests are not just for some people. In Leviticus chapter 23, Yah said these must be kept by his people. And on the day of judgment, which was last week, everybody's record came under review to Yah. When we talk about leaving the wheat and the tares together until the day of harvest, we better understand what we're talking about. The last harvest of the year in the Hebrew is the fruit harvest, which we're now in. It's not the end of the Gregorian year, it's the end of the 7th month. That's the harvest, the last harvest, the barley harvest, the wheat harvest, and then the fruit harvest. And say, leave the wheat and the tares and let them grow together until the time of tabernacle. We've got to understand that. Because by tabernacle, you should be producing fruit. And now you understand why he cursed the fig tree. The fig tree was supposed to produce fruit. It appeared to have fruit, but all it had was foliage. And so, it is a solemn thought that harvest is past. Some people are rejoicing. But the question is, how many are saved? If we should see the outcome of the judgment that took place on the day of Yom Kippur, how many names were hatched out and how many names were placed in? The people cried. The harvest had failed them. They waited under the fruit harvest, but there was no latter rain. And so they cried. And so Yah was still merciful to them by sending Jeremiah to warn them that, listen, if you could just change your attitude, change your mind, then I will repent of what I'm about to do. Because he indicated to them that he was going to bring up Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon, that country from the far north, to destroy, to chastise them. But if only they would change. But they wouldn't change. And so he tried every conceivable method that he could use to get the people's attention. So come with me to Jeremiah chapter 18. The word which came to Yirmiyahu from Yahweh saying, arise and go down to the potter's house. Jeremiah, I want you to go down to the potter's house, because I'm going to dramatize this situation to you so you understand the message that I have for Judah. Israel did not obey me. That's the northern 10 tribe. And so I brought up the Assyrians and they took them away, and they haven't come back yet. And I was hoping that that would be a deterrent, that would be a lesson to Judah. But Judah has not heard. And I'm trying to save Judah. Remember what I said, the poetry here is what he is feeling. And he's letting us know exactly how he feels for Judah. And he's telling us that go down to the potter's house. Go down there. There is a message there that I want Judah to understand. Arise and go down to the potter's house, and there I let you hear the word. So I went, Jeremiah's telling you, I went down to the potter's house and saw him doing a piece of work on the wheel. The potter, he has a piece of clay in his hand, and he puts the clay on the wheel. And the vessel that was made of clay was ruined in the hand of the potter. It was ruined. Yah is trying to say to us that he is trying to make Israel like a potter would into a beautiful vase. But it marred. Are you with me? And let us not think that the potter here, Yeshua, is going to make you contrary to what you want to be. No, that's not the case. The clay has a role to play in its own shape. And Jeremiah needs to understand this. We need to understand it so we can tell it to you. Jeremiah says, I see the piece of clay in his hand on the wheel, but it was marred. Oh, yes. I went down to the potter's house, and when I looked, the vessel, that beautiful vase that he was trying to make, that you could take to Sotheby's or any of the auction house, and you could sell it, and the aficionado, they would look at it and say, how beautiful a vase. But the clay would not cooperate with the potter. That's the message here that he wants us to understand. Then the word of Yah came to me, O house of Israel, am I not able to do with you as the potter does, declares Yahweh? Look at the clay in the hand of the potter. So you are in my hand, O house of Israel. The moment I speak concerning a nation and concerning a reign, to pluck up, to pull down, and to destroy. That's what Jeremiah names mean, to pluck up and to pull down. And that's what Jeremiah was sent out to do, to pull down and to rebuild. And sometimes in order to rebuild, you have to tear down. Are you with me? And so that vase, that beautiful vessel that he was trying to make, in his hand, it's spoiled. And when you won't allow yourself to be made into a beautiful vase, Yah gives you the shape that you want, and he makes you into an ugly mug. Are you with me? And that's what he did. And you read chapter 19, it's an ugly mug. And then he sends Jeremiah down to the valley of Inon, and he tells Jeremiah to break that ugly mug down there. Where's Inon? Inon is where all the garbage and the rubbish is. It's in the eve. He says, break it down there. So the people will know that they're a ugly mug, because they refuse to be that beautiful vase. And so when you reject the feast days, and you reject the Sabbath, and you reject what Yah wants you to do and to be this beautiful vase, you're nothing but an ugly mug. It doesn't matter what makeup you put on, you're still a ugly mug. And so by this time, Jeremiah is about fed up. He's fed up with it. He's just had enough. Have you ever been in that position? He gets to the point where, to make this thing existentially relevant. Jeremiah is here now as if he's saying, I have sent them emails and they have not responded. I have sent them WhatsApp and they have not respond. I have called them and they have not returned my call. I have had enough. Come with me to chapter 20, and I will explain. Remember, I said this is what Yah is feeling. And in the poetry of this, he is revealing his heart to us, as he did in the book of Hosea. He's saying, this is, how I'm feeling. And if you don't care about how your creator is feeling, then you are just, what kind of a person? your heart is just without feeling, simply. Chapter 20. And let's look at verse 7. Jeremiah says, you entice me. In some word, it said, you deceived me. And if you're ever deceived by Yahweh, you better know that you've been deceived. Oh, Yahweh, you enticed me, and I was enticed. You are stronger than I can't wrestle with you. I can't win with you, because you are strong. Stronger than I, and have prevailed. I have been ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. Everywhere I go, people mocks me. The things we preach here, people laugh at them. They say, you have become too Jewish, and we have become an object of ridicule. That's what Jeremiah is saying. And sometimes we feel that because no one is listening. Nobody cares what you're saying. You speak to the neighbors, and it's as if you spoke to a brick. And you talk to a friend, and it's as if you were speaking to an iceberg, cold. And nobody is listening to it. So he's at that stage now where he's had enough. He said, it was you who enticed me. And in truth, I was enticed. But now you've enticed me to become a ridicule. A ridicule. For when I speak, I cry out, proclaiming violence and ruin, because the word of Yah was made to me a reproach and a derision daily. When I said, let me not mention it, I'm not going to mention his name again. I'm not going to preach your name again, says Jeremiah. I've had enough. Because all that I have had is disrespect, dishonor, and the people hate me. They're digging ditch for me. They want to put me in a hole, and that's all they're doing. I am through. I'm not going to mention your name. I'm not going to speak your word. I have had it. Even though I came from the womb, blessed and sent by you to the people, I've had enough, says Jeremiah. Have you ever felt that way? You're talking to a people, and there is no excitement in their voice. Even when you tell them, yeah, it's coming soon, there is no excitement because the luggage they have, that which they've accumulated through their wealth, and they don't want to leave that. And Jeremiah has had enough. He says, I'm not going to speak your word again. But whenever I said, let me not mention him, nor speak in his name, it was in my heart like a burning fire shut up in my bone. I became weary of holding it back and was helpless. I can't help it. I just have to speak your word. I cannot but do what I have seen and what I have heard. I couldn't, even though I said that I'm not going to speak his word was like a burning coal, a fire in my heart, and I could not contain myself. I had to speak his word. That's the passion of the man. The weeping. He wept over Jerusalem. He wept. Oh, yes. Jeremiah wept over the people. And even though they saw him weeping, it didn't bother them. They decided they would kill him. So come with me to chapter 8 of Ezekiel, because Jeremiah was a contemporary of Ezekiel. So while he was telling Jeremiah that, let me show you what was happening inside of the temple. Ezekiel chapter 8. And it came to be in the 6th year, in the 6th month of the 5th of the new moon, as I sat in my house with the elders of Yehudah sitting before me, and the hand of the master Yahweh fell up on me there. Now understand what's happening here. Ezekiel is in Babylon. He's one of the captives, like Daniel, that was taken to Babylon. And I want you to take note of the first verse here, chapter 8. He says, and it came in the 6th year, in the 6th month, in the 5th of the new moon. So it is the 6th month, and it is the 5th day of the 6th month. Now, to the average eye, that means nothing. That means nothing. But understand what's happening here. The 6th month is Elul. And he's telling you it's the 5th day of Elul. That means Ezekiel knows that 35 days from now, it is a day of judgment. Because from the 1st of Elul to the 10th day of the 7th month, which is Yom Kippur, it's 40 days. And he's letting you know it was on this day, 35 days before the day of judgment, that I sat here, and Yahweh came and held me by the lock and took me to Jerusalem to show me what was happening in the temple. And I looked and saw a likeness like the appearance of fire. From his waist and downwards, so the appearance was like fire, and from his waist and upward, like the appearance of brightness, like glowing metal. And he stretched out the form of a hand and took me by the lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven. He suspended between heaven and earth, and brought me in the vision of Elohim in Jerusalem to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which caused jealousy. This was what was happening while Jeremiah was preaching, and it seemed there was no leader. And so he brought Ezekiel from Babylon to show it him. And he said to me, Son of man, please lift your eyes towards the north. And I lifted my eyes northward, and the north of the slaughter place gate, I saw the image of jealousy in the entrance. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they're doing? The great abominations which the house of Israel are doing here, driving me away and from my set apart place, and ye are to see still greater abomination. Then he brought me to the door of the court, and I looked and saw a hole in the wall. And he said to me, Son of man, please dig in the wall. And when I dug in the wall, I saw a door. And he said to me, go in and see the evil abomination which they are doing. And I went and I looked, and I saw all the kinds of creeping creatures, abominable beasts, and all idols of the house of Israel carved all around on the walls. And facing them stood 70 men, the elders of the house of Israel. Remember, the Sanhedrin was made of 70, plus the chair, 71. And in the midst stood Yeshayahu, the son of Shaphan. Now, Shaphan was one of the men who found the book of Deuteronomy during the time of Josiah. Are you with me? And so they had found the book of the law, and they knew that the curse of Yah was on the land. So they began to practice through Josiah reform. But Josiah's reform was really an outward reform. Jeremiah now came to bring an inward reform. The people wouldn't have it. They were just doing the rituals. They were keeping the feast days and doing all that appeared to be right. But the harvest had passed. The summer had ended. And the people were not saved. And so when Jeremiah came now, Jeremiah is saying, you see all those feast days that you're keeping, they were pointing to something more significant. They were pointing to something spiritual. Now let that reform be internal. They said, Jeremiah, we have one thing for you, one gift for you. It's a pit. And they threw him in a pit. They threw him in a pit. Oh, yes, they threw Jeremiah in a pit. And it was that Ethiopian who had to take Jeremiah out of the pit. And eventually Jeremiah ended up in Egypt. That's where he died, in Egypt. Because by that time, the Ark of the Covenant was in Elephantine Island in Egypt. In fact, Jeremiah was captured and taken to Egypt against his will. Now, so Ezekiel is showing us here what is happening. And Ezekiel goes on to tell us that there were people, the women were weeping for Tammuz. Who's Tammuz? Tammuz is the son of Nimrod and Semiramis, who was the one who was born in December the 25th. And so when people say they're keeping Christmas, they're really celebrating the birthday of Tammuz. Can you understand? And Yah is saying, I'm a jealous Yah. My son was born in the season of tabernacle, but you are weeping for Tammuz, who was born on the 25th of December, and you give praise and honor to him. And so you can see how offended Yah was. And so Yah says, the best remedy for this is to tear down the temple. And so he invited Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar came in 605 and destroyed everything. In fact, the first temple was destroyed on the 9th of Av. And the second temple was destroyed on the 9th of Av, the same day. He said, go and look at Shiloh, what I did. I'd been there for 400 years. My name was there. But because of the wickedness, I tear it down. And all you can say, this is the house of the Lord. This is the house of the Lord. Heckle, heckle, heckle. You're speaking lies. Jeremiah, go down to the gate. Let them see you. Don't be afraid of their face. It doesn't matter what they look like. Don't let them intimidate you. If there is no voice to reprove and to correct, what will be the outcome? Tell me. It's a good job they weren't paying Jeremiah's salary, because Jeremiah couldn't preach against a conference like that. Are you see me? Jeremiah was not an hireling. He was sent by Yah. He could speak Yah's word. And any preacher who is not speaking Yah's word is only tickling the people's ear, appeasing them. Don't love their souls at all. Can't do. No. And so Jeremiah said, you entice me. You entice me. So come with me, Jeremiah chapter 23. And we will read verse 5. See, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when I shall raise for David a branch of righteousness, and the sovereign shall reign and act wisely, and shall do right ruling and righteousness in the earth. In his days, Yehudah shall be saved, and Israel dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called what? Our righteousness. Despite of all the doom and gloom that Jeremiah sent forth in his lamentations, he gives hope. He says, one is coming. Who is coming? Messiah is coming. And when he comes, he is that branch of righteousness. He's coming out of David's house, out of Judah. And he's going to raise up a righteous branch. And when he comes, you see all those things that they are doing in the temple in Jerusalem? He said, no, those things will stop. In fact, I'm going to stop it now. So you better join me in chapter 9 of Ezekiel. And he called out, this is the verse 1 of chapter 9, and he called out in my hearing with a loud voice, saying, let the punishers of the city draw near. Those who are going to chastise the city. Let them come near, each with his weapon of destruction in his hand. And look, 6 men came from the direction of the upper gate, which faces north, each with his battle axe in his hand. And one man in their midst was clothed with linen and had a writer's inkhorn at his side. And they came in and stood beside the bronze slaughter place. Did you get that? This is the brazen altar. Are you with me? And the esteem of Yahweh, of Elohim of Israel, went up from the cherub, which is as being to the threshold of the house. Watch this now. The Holy Spirit is leaving the temple because destruction is coming. This is exactly what happened in Shiloh. That's why the child was called Ichabod. The glory is gone. And see, we see it here in chapter 9. The Spirit is leaving and went up, leaving the temple, and went up onto the threshold of the temple. Why? Because the temple is to be destroyed. And Yahweh said to him, pass on into the midst of the city, into the midst of the Jerusalem, and you shall put a mark on the foreheads of the men who sigh and cry over the abominations that are done within it. Go through the assembly, go through the temple, and look at those who are sighing and crying of the abominations that we're doing there. Only focus on them. Dilate on them and seal them in, just like he did on the wall of Jericho. Make sure that there is a golden cord of righteousness hanging through the window of Israel. And take note of it. And those who speak of the abomination and shouting it and proclaiming my name that I'm against these things, seal them in. Today, there is a genre of preaching, of teaching, that says, bring them in. Let the abomination come in. Every unclean bird, let them come into the temple. Perhaps they will hear a sermon, and that sermon will change them. Because, he said, come as you are. He didn't say to stay as you are. Are you with me? Go through the city and put a mark on the people. You didn't hear me. He says, put a mark, seal them in, because Satan is going to give them his mark. There's 2 marks. Yah seal and the mark of the beast. Which one did you get? The summer has passed. So too are the feast. But you have not even bothered to inquire whether or not you are saved. In fact, you didn't even turn up. You said they're done away with. Who told you so? Oh, pastor says. So you're going to go to hell because of your pastor? How wise is that? Verse 6, kill to destruction hold young men, maidens, and children, and women. But do not come near anyone upon whom is the mark, my mark, and begin where? In my set apart place, in my temple. Kill. Where must you start killing? In the church. In the temple. So, but this is the house of the Lord. I've gone. Did you not see the Spirit leave and go onto the threshold? I've gone. Did you not hear when I sent my son what he said? Your house is now left to you desolate. Did you not hear that? Did you not understand? Why did you remain when the Spirit went? Yeshua said, Matthew 23:38, Luke 13:35, behold, your house is left to you desolate. And in 70 AD, Titus came from the Roman and tore the temple down. And the people were still waiting 37 years, thinking Yah was there, and he was not there. 37 years. He says, when you start the killing, start in my temple, in my assembly, in my church. And don't spare anyone. Don't think you're going to have sympathy in the young ones. No, kill children, old, and young. Begin in my sanctuary. Now, if you understand that, understand this. Come with me to Revelation 18. Revelation 18. Because we seem not to want to hear what Yah has to say. And we will start at verse 22. 22. And the sound of a harpist and musician and flutists and trumpeters shall not be heard in you anymore at all. And no craftsman of any trade shall be found in you any more at all, and the sound of the millstone shall not be heard in you any more at all. And the light of the lamp shall not shine in you any more at all, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you any more at all. For your merchants were the great ones of the earth. For by their drug sorcery, their pharmakia, those things they put in your arms, all the nations were led astray, they were deceived. When you see this, this is the indicium or the indicia. These are the signs that you will know when the Spirit has left. Are you with me? When you see this, Revelation 18 and verse 4 says, come out from among them, my people, come out and be sealed with my seal. Be not partakers of their sins, because if you are, you will not be in this company. Come with me to Matthew 22. Matthew 22. Now understand that the Bible tells us that in John chapter 3, when Yeshua came into ministry, his first attendance was at a wedding in Cana. And he turned water into wine. His mom said, they don't have any wine. And he said, woman, you know it's not my wedding. It's not my turn yet. Why are you asking me to give them wine? All right, I will give them a foretaste of the wine. Did you get me? Well, you know what? Let's go to John, because I don't want you to say I said. John chapter 3. That's Yohanan. Yohanan chapter 3. The word says, and there was a man of the Pharisees, no, I should say chapter what? 2. And on the third day there was a wedding of Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Yahweh was there. That's Yohanan chapter 2. And both Yahweh and his taught ones, his disciples, were invited to the wedding. So you see how important marriage is. His first entrance in the ministry was at a wedding. That's why we discussed this morning about marriage. the importance of it and the value of it. And this society doesn't want that. Yahweh said to her, woman, what is that to me and to you? My hour is not yet come. His mother said to the servant, do whatever he says to you. And there were 6 stone water jugs standing there according to the mode of the cleansing of Yehudim, each holding 2 or 3 measures. Yeshua said to them, fill the water jugs with water, and they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, now draw out and take it to the master of the feast. So they took it. But when the master of the feast had tasted the water that had become wine, and did not know where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom. He didn't hear me. He called the bridegroom, and he said to him, every man at the beginning set forth the good wine, and when they have drunk then that which is poorer, you have kept the good wine until now. He had kept the good wine until the last. Did you get it? Meaning, that which happened at Canaan at the beginning of his ministry was a foretaste of what you and I, if we're faithful, will get at the end. Now you will understand Matthew 22. Come with me there. And Yeshua responding and spoke to them again by parables and said, the reign of heaven is like a man, a sovereign who had made a wedding feast of his son. This is his wedding feast. Canaan was not his. He was visiting. He was a visitor. He was one who had been invited. And sent out his servants to call those who were invited to the wedding feast, but they would not come. Again, he sent out other servants, saying, say to those who are invited, see, I have prepared the dinner, my oxen and my fatted calf are slaughtered, and all is ready. Come to the wedding. The bridegroom says, come. And the bride says, come. Come to the wedding. Are you with me? He sent the patriarchs out. He sent the prophets out. He sent the judges out. He sent the priest out. He sent the apostles out. And in these last days, even feeble we, he has sent us out. And the people say, no, we're not coming to the feast. Now, did you know that the rehearsing of the feast is a prerequisite to the wedding? Did you know that? Obedience is a prerequisite to the wedding. So he says here, he has sent them out. Again, he sent out other servants saying, say to those who are invited, this is all of Israel, everybody who's baptized in Yeshua's name, they are supposed to keep the feast. Are you with me? And he said, I have everything ready. You don't even have to bring anything. I've prepared even your garments of righteousness. All you have to do is to turn out. But they disregarded it, just as they disregarded Jeremiah, and went their way. This one says, in his field. One is going to his field, the one is going to trade. I have some stocks I have to check. And you know, I have a field, and I have houses I have to attend to. And so they were busy, just like in the time of Noah. They were giving and taking and eating and drinking, just like that. But they disregarded what was preached and what was taught. And the rest, having seized his servant, insulted and killed him. They insult us. How can Sabbath be on a Monday? They say. It can be on a Monday because it's annual, and we go by the lunar calendar. Simple, the biblical calendar. And so they insult us just like they insulted Jeremiah. And if they had their way, they would put us in a pit too. That's why they don't bother to answer the emails or the WhatsApp or the messages. They say, just leave it alone. But they did not know that the churches they're attending, the Spirit is gone, up on the threshold. And we were doing what we're doing, and we are doing what we're doing because these are prerequisite to the wedding banquet. They don't understand it. And so he sends his invitations out and says, whosoever will, let him come. Then he said to his servants, the wedding feast indeed is ready, but those who are invited were not worthy. They were what? Not worthy. Therefore, go out in the street, the corners, as many as you can find, invite to the wedding feast. Because those who are baptized in Yeshua, they're already in their denomination, and they are listening to what the bishops and the pastors are saying, and saying the feast days are done away with. But find who you can and bring them in to the feast. Encourage them, incite them to keep the feast. Incite them. And those servants went out into the street corners and gathered all whom they found, both wicked and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. Did you hear that? You're getting married, and you send invitation out to your friends and your relatives, and they didn't turn up. So you went to the park, and you saw some people playing, and you just said, come, come, come. And they came in and filled the place out. But when he was there, according to verse 11, he saw a man who had smuggled his way in without the wedding garment. Let's read it. And when the sovereign came in to view the guests, he saw there a man who had not put on the wedding garment, and he said to him, friend, how did you come in here not having the wedding garment? And he was speechless. Yeshua says, when you come to my wedding, the attire is righteousness. Don't come unless you have righteousness on. This man had dungarees on. Are you with me? He had chinos on. He had pumps on. He had sneakers on. Attitudinally. But he never had the righteousness. So what did Yeshua say to him? Then the sovereign said to the servant, bind him. What? Bind him, hand and foot, take him away and throw him into the outer darkness. There shall be what? Weeping and gnashing of teeth, for many are called, but few are chosen. Listen to me. Let me say that in another way. Many are called to the feast, but only few turned up. Are you with me? Then the Pharisees went and plotted out to trap him in his words. And so let's just bring this picture that Jeremiah gave us through Yah into its conclusion. What happened in Jeremiah's time is happening again. Because there are too few Jeremiahs. Are you with me? Because the people are busy having a what? Pleasure. In fact, Jeremiah gave us a word in the English language, to be Jeremiah'd. To be Jeremiah'd, meaning to be gloomy, downcast. lamentable. You're lamenting over people's soul. And so the church is not Jeremiah enough. The people are busy on their Facebook. They're busy. Let me say that again. The people are busy on their Facebook, but their names are not in the book of the face of Yahweh, the book of Lamb, the Lamb's book of life. It's not in there. Why? It says invitations were sent out and they disregarded it. They were busy in their fields, with their houses, at work. But when he come, they tried to smuggle their way in without the righteousness. And they were bound, hands and feet, and were thrown into utter darkness. Then Matthew 25 picks up that theme. He puts the goats on the left and the sheep on the right. And these goatly apostates, you know what they say? Didn't we do this? Didn't we do that? Didn't we do that in your name? He said, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. So, we are now in the first day of Tabernacle, the birthday of Yeshua. It runs for 7 days, and then there is an 8th day, and it's all rejoicing. Why? Because we have repented, and we have been redeemed, and now he gives us this opportunity to rejoice. Let this be your experience, to rejoice in Yeshua, in that the harvest is past, the summer is ended, but you are saved. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.